All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Legion of Orange Flyers show here on the RTB network, presented by SeatGeek. I am your host. I'm the host of all the shows on this network, Christy Francesco. Joining me is my brother, Zach. And look, I'm just going to get this right out of the way and we can get things started. One of the questions that was asked of me is how come I'm getting back to the show right at the midseason point? And the answer is pretty simple. It's time. I just didn't have when I first said that the show was going to be every week. I had a lot more time on my schedule. Once late September hit, my schedule just completely got obliterated. I got kids in sports, and then I work nights. But now that certain things have cleared up as we've hit the new year. I'm going to be able to start covering more Flyers games. I'll be down there tomorrow night covering the Flyers and Stars and so on and so forth. So what better time than any, really, to get back on the saddle here to talk Flyers hockey, which is most people who know me know that's my bread and butter, and it's been that way. It's 2025. I started covering the Flyers in 2005. So this is technically, I'm going into my second decade. Into my second decade covering the Flyers. But nonetheless, we are here. It's the midway point of the season. Couple things I really want to get into before we get to our mid-season grades. The Flyers are 3-6-1 in their last 10 games. A couple other things I really wanted to say, because as we are at this midway point of the season, Zach, the Flyers are 17-19-5 as it stands right now. They have 39 points. They have regressed from a record standpoint since last season. At this very point last season, Zach, the Flyers had 48 points at the midway mark. They were 21-14-6 last season. I want to ask you, Zach, because you follow this team out like every hour. Like, you're on top of it. You go to practices when you can. You go to a lot of games. Our family has season tickets. So from a fan perspective, Zach, I don't think this team is worse than they were last year from a player-to-player standpoint, taking away goaltending. We're going to get into goaltending soon because it's the worst in hockey. It's maybe the worst in NHL history. But, Zach, from a player-to-player, I don't think the Flyers are worse than they were last season. Do you think, strictly, when you look at the Flyers record right now through the halfway point, most of that has to be contributed to goaltending?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
I think a lot of it has to do with defense, too.
Mm-hmm.
Our defense is not the same as last year. I can tell you that.
So
And our goaltending is much worse.
So from a defensive standpoint, what has stood out to you from a negative aspect?
Probably
the regression of like a Cam York.
Regression of Cam York. Then you have Drysdale that's not progressing to anything.
Yeah.
Zamula took a downward step.
I agree.
That it really comes down to those three defenders.
And I will say too, as we talk about the regression of the Cam Yorks and the Igor Zamulas, we do have to give credit where credit's due. Travis Sanheim has taken a really big step forward this year. Rasmus Ristolainen has taken a big step this year. Ristolainen has taken such a big step this season for the Flyers so far that he's unfortunately being relied upon way more than he should be. Zach, we saw it last night at against the Maple Leafs. Ristolainen is basically their point man. They're on their first line power play, and if you're relying on Rasmus Ristolainen to be the guy who's carrying pucks into the offensive zone on a power play, you're in a world of discombobulation and trouble. But you are correct, and I agree with you. I think Nick Seeler might have taken a step back this season as well. He is projected to double his career high in points, which was 14. But I just don't see him being as effective this season as I thought he was this last year. Do you agree or disagree? I know you're a Nick Seeler guy.
I'm a big Nick Seeler fan.
Yeah.
I know he does. I think he is like top 3 in defensemen in block shots this year,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
But
he's
I
15th.
believe. Oh, he's 15th now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
The dude needs some ice packs.
yeah, that shot he blocked that last game, man, that was a good one.
It was.
But wasn't he top 3 last year? I believe he was
Top
3
3.
last
He
year.
was top 3 last season.
Yeah, so I can see from that standpoint, he took it down step in that one. But is he like a +1 or a +2 or something?
Let me check for you right now. Nick
I don't
Seeler.
I don't think he's a minus.
Nick Seeler is a +1.
Okay, so it's not too bad.
Yeah, he's no Joel Farabee, who's a -14, but we'll
Oh
get
my
into
God.
that clown soon.
Yeah, as soon as you have that clown on the friggin' power play.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. Don't worry. Look, of all of that, like you said, that the defense has taken kind of a step back. In November, I thought the team was much better defensively. I would even say the back end of October, the defense was a little better than what they're showing right now. Where it's January 8th. The Flyers, like I said, they're 3-6-1 their last 10. The Flyers have not had consecutive wins since a 3-game win streak from November 27th to the 30th. So this is a team, Zach, that, I mean, gosh, if they're able to, a couple of these wins, of these losses are by 1 goal, and a couple empty netters at the end of these games to make it 2-goal losses. But man, if you could get points out of some of those losses over the last 10 to 15 games, you're looking at a much different team. If somebody can come up to me right now and say to me, the playoff picture in the Metropolitan or in the Eastern Conference is pretty much set, I'm going to say you're full of crap. I mean, when you look at the standings right now, let's just say from a conference standpoint, the Washington Capitals and the Maple Leafs are tied at top of the standings with 56 points. But then if you go down, the Flyers right now are 13th in the East with 39 points. You go to the wild card, right? When you look at the Metro, the top wild card teams, Tampa Bay Lightning with 44 points. The Columbus Blue Jackets are 42 points. So right now, the Philadelphia Flyers at 17, 19, and what are they? 17, 19, and what the heck am I looking at here? I'm sorry, 17, 19, and 5. You take away, you can add some points there. A couple, turn like 1 or 2 of those losses into wins, which easily can be done, Zach. The Flyers are right atop of the wild card. The Eastern Conference wild card situation is so wide open right now. If the Flyers can somehow get on like another 3-game heater, I mean, we'll call it 3-game win streak for this Flyers team a heater. If the Flyers can go on a little bit of a heater, you're talking about a Philadelphia Flyers team, Zach, that's 1 or 2 in the wild card. This is why I think, and from what I talked to a couple players today, and there's no, they're not having any kind of desperation in that locker room. TK said last night that it's a very confident group. It's a group that continues to play hockey the right way. Even John Tortorella, head coach John Tortorella, talked about it last night after the game, that this is a team that's playing good hockey. Just certain bounces aren't going their way. Zach, when you see the wild card where you're 5 points out of the top spot of the wild card right now, this is a Flyers team that's got to keep pushing on the gas pedal. What's your confidence level right now that this team can maybe start stringing together a couple wins to keep themselves in that playoff picture?
I don't have too much confidence anymore like I had in the beginning of the season. When Urson keeps getting hurt, not playing.
Yeah.
Then you start a guy like Ivan Fedotov or Kolosov.
Mm-hmm.
Our defense isn't showing up. Like Cam York is getting hurt. But when he came back, he's hasn't done anything. Zamula is just when he's out there, I don't even notice him.
Mm-hmm. We talked about that last night. I'm like, oh look, that's the first time I've even seen Zamula skating around the ice. Yeah,
he's just skating in circles the whole time. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Yeah.
I was a Zamula fan, maybe last year or year before that. I'm not a big fan of him anymore. So
Zach goes week to week. One week Cam York is his favorite player. The next week I'll ask Zach, so what about Cam York? Well, he stinks. We gotta trade him. All right, so
I wouldn't mind that.
Oh, I mean, look, anybody not named Konechny and Michkov are a tradable piece on this roster. We're going to get into that later as well. So before we get to midseason grades, I do want to get to some fan questions that were sent to me via Twitter and Instagram. The first one comes here from Eric on Instagram. Is goaltending really the only main problem with this hockey team? So, no, it's not the main problem. But I'm going to just, rip open the Band-Aid now. This is the worst. And I'm 38 years old. And I've been cut. So let's just go for the last 20 years that I've been covering the Flyers. This is the worst goaltending I have seen with the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, it's not even close. And it's so bad right now, Zach. It was illuminated even more in post-game last night with John Tortorella when he was asked about the goaltending rotation, and he looked so defeated and just so done with the goaltending, where he said, I might be paraphrasing here, he said, I have no idea what the goaltending rotation is. This is a complete failure from Danny Briere and Keith Jones. I know Flyers fans are obsessed with Danny B and Keith Jones, and they're Flyer guys to the core, and I love them both. I cover Danny Briere's every single day in Philadelphia as a player. I've been, friends with Danny for a long time, an incredible human being. Keith Jones, the same way. I worked with him in radio. Then I was just up here with him when he was broadcasting for the Flyers. But from a strictly analytical standpoint, from what I'm judging them by what their job is right now. To be 17, 19, and 5, to be 5 points out of a top wild card spot. This team to not have a single goaltender that can be trusted. I thought it was going to be Sam Ersson. I still think Sam Ersson is by far the only legitimate looking goaltender on the roster. When he's in there, he looks like an NHL goalie. The others have no clue. Fedotov last night gave up 3 goals on 17 shots. One of the third goal, there's no way he would have been able to see that at all. But nonetheless, he just doesn't look like an NHL goalie, if that makes sense to anyone. This goaltending, it's embarrassing. It's disrespectful to the fan base. It's disrespectful to the franchise. It's the fact that every single game that we are getting ready to watch for the Flyers, Zach, we have no idea who the goaltender is going to be. Whoever it is, you have no clue what you're going to get out of them. How disappointed are you, Zach, in this goaltending? And if you bring up any goalie that's going to be a goalie 3 years from now, that's not the question. With this team right now, is that legitimately the main spot holding this team back?
I'll say probably second.
To
Holding
what?
Just strictly just a talent issue.
Mm.
Just we have literally just Konechny.
Yeah.
That can just put up some points. And
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, Michkov and stuff like that." His 5-on-5 game isn't really that good.
It's non-existent. It doesn't exist. Yeah.
No, he's good on power plays.
And that would
He's
be it.
okay on power plays, but
He's
he helps
okay.
the power play out a lot, just to create some opportunities.
Yeah.
He's good in overtimes, but his 5-on-5 game isn't really surprising me or anything.
Yeah, much more to be desired from his 5-on-5 for sure. I agree.
But
But I
I
agree.
do think it's just strictly just offensive talent, and our defense isn't showing up. So, but I do put the goaltending second.
Okay. I mean, I guess from an overall roster standpoint, yes, talent is going to be what carries you. I lump the goaltending in there with talent, so I guess that to me it evens out. I do think the lack of offensive talent is a massive issue, and I'm going to get into that right now with this next question. This came from Brad on Instagram. Is TK a 100-point player? Yes, just not on this roster. And I was talking to a good friend of mine. Everyone knows him, Jason Martinez, by the way. Stick taps and just constant well wishes and good vibes and big time prayers are going to Jason, who's fighting a battle now. He's made it very public, so I'm not exposing anything. But he's gonna come out on the other end of this like smelling like roses. But still, nonetheless, we're thinking of him constantly. I was talking to him last night during the game, and I said, man, if only Travis Konechny could have a 1C. And that, for those who are new to hockey, a 1C means a first-line center, a number one guy. And he even replied, he said he'd be a 100-point player plus with a number 1C. And I agree with you. If you get a guy in here like maybe a Robert Thomas or a Mikko Rantanen or a Elias Pettersson. If you get like an Elias Pettersson in here, Travis Konechny is easily a 95 to 100-point player, 40 goals. Just check mark that prior to a season. Travis Konechny 40 goals. Zach, do you agree that TK is that kind of player where, man, just get him a number one center and he is going to be a perennial all-star?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have 0 number one centers. we have
you don't even have number 3 centers.
And Couture is maybe a 3 center.
At this point, maybe.
But I do agree. If we had Elias Pettersson, Dylan Cousins, possibly maybe a Dylan Cousins, a Marco Rossi or a Robert Thomas,
yeah,
he'll have 40 goals and like 70 assists probably.
Yeah, I mean,
that's only because you just imagine this line. It would be Pettersson, TK, Michkov.
Yeah, that's a dream. I'm gonna go after this and play NHL 25, and I'm just gonna. The only way that's going to happen right now is if I do it on NHL 25, but I would love to do it. When you look at a Sean Couturier, look, I love Coots. Again, I remember being downstairs. I remember talking to Couturier when he was drafted by the Flyers, and then again, great dude, good captain. Well respected, but he's a number one center on this team. He's a 0.5 point per game pace this year, or that basically equates, Zach, to 1 goal, like every 16 games. I think he's got 1 goal in the last 17 games this year. His face-off percentage is just about 57%, which is 12th among forwards in hockey. But man, since he's had that 5-point game, I think it was against the Minnesota Wild. Yeah. I don't think I've seen Couturier be remotely effective since then. He's just such an eyesore from a contract perspective, making just under $8 million. Again, he's not a movable piece. He can't be moved.
I think it's just, he can be moved. I was looking on NHL 25, by the way, on his contract. And he has a modified no trade clause. And I think it's like in 2027. Mm-hmm. So I think he can be moved in 3 years.
3 years.
So we don't need to tell him to like, hey, can you move your no movement clause? As soon as that modified no trade clause kicks in, we can just get rid of him. But I don't think you'll be just going to buy him out.
In my opinion, if they went to Sean Couturier, I mean, they're a rebuilding team. Maybe Couturier wants to leave Philadelphia and go play for a team that can win, that can contend now, because he's just going to continue to decline. And it's going to be real ugly if he's here for 3, 4, 5 more years. I don't see it being a problem if Danny went to Couturier and said, hey, you're not in the future plans of this franchise, which is pretty clear right now. Anyway, would you give us a list of 10 teams that you would like to go to? I think Couturier would abide by that. I think he would say, sure, here's 10 teams, see what you can do for me. The Flyers would have to retain some of that, of course, but I don't think that's a move they're going to do this season. Maybe that's an off-season discussion. But nonetheless, we'll see. But yeah, Brad, TK is definitely a 100-point player. He's going to probably push that 80 to 85-point marker this year. He's at 45 points already, so he's obviously pacing for 90.
Was it 45 points in 41 games?
40, yeah, midseason. So he's got 41 more games. He's pacing for 90. Yeah, and he's pacing for obviously 40 goals. He had 2 goals last night against the Maple Leafs. All right. So next question here. We got 2 more before I want to get to our midseason grades and get rolling on that. This is from Sean on X. Are you souring on Michkov already? Let me just say this. I had 70 to 75 point expectations for Matvei Michkov going into the season. And by the way, that's not that much. He was a lot of people said he was a top 2 overall pick. He fell to the Flyers, obviously, because of the Russian thing. There are 18, 19, 20-year-olds that come into the NHL and get you 80 to 100 points. This isn't the NFL. This isn't Major League Baseball, where it takes years for guys that are young to contribute. This is the National Hockey League. Guys can come into the league at 19 and be really, really good. So, for me to sit here and tell you, Matvei Michkov is this age. What is he, 20? He just turned 20. Yeah, he's 20, right? So, he's not an 18-year-old. He's a 20-year-old with a lot of skill. He's been playing the game at a high level for a long time. He's 40 games into this season. Halfway through, I'm going to expect more out of him now. He's getting, over 15 minutes a night. Sometimes he's going to get more. He's getting first-line power play opportunities. He's an incredible skater with great puck handling, so his 5-on-5 should be better. You're in the NHL, kiddo. I'm not going to sit here and pussyfoot around nonstop just because you're 20 years old and you're a rookie. I don't care. You're here to produce. You're that much of a high-end talent. For him to be sitting here, at a -9, 12 goals, 17 assists, That's fine. I mean, I was expecting at least 15 goals by this point, especially with how he started out. He looked like he came right out of the gate with a really good idea of how to score goals here, especially on the power play in that first couple weeks of the season. But he's Zach, it's not a good thing when you're probably maybe your most talented player outside of Travis Konechny is going on multiple streaks of 5, 6, 7 games with no points. This can't happen.
I also think the problem is obviously the number one center problem that we don't have.
So
We don't have like an Elias Pettersson with him or someone like him. And he's not even on the line with Travis Konechny until like the power
yeah,
play.
yeah, yeah. So
And he had him. Tortorella put him on the same line I think like a month back, and they actually had some chemistry going. And then they took him back off that line. So I
and
don't
look,
know.
you and I have talked about this. I don't understand the constant mix and matching that Tortorella's doing with Michkov here. And you're right. And we were talking to the guy last night that was sitting in front of us, really good dude. I don't know his name. Um, the caveat, the catch-22 to this with Michkov is he's not playing with any talent at all. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you don't want to put all of your main cogs in one line by playing him at Konechny every time. But if he's not playing with Travis Konechny, then Michkov is sometimes at a point where he has to do it all himself. That I can't blame him for. Um, you know, he had those overtime winning goals. He's got 3 of them, 3 game winning goals to his think already. The hype that he's had has been incredible. The 5-on-5 is bad. His defensive skill set is really poor. His discipline as a 20-year-old is just not there. That's going to take time, which I get it. I mean, Konechny is 27 and sometimes plays real undisciplined hockey. So I'm not going to just lambaste Michkov with that. Look, not for nothing, as much as I'm going to, kind of criticize him, he is second on the team in points with 29. But he looks like he's slowing down. Like he's almost not physically ready for an NHL schedule right now. He's got 2 points in his last 12 games. So, you look at a guy like Macklin Celebrini, Lane Houston. These guys have now probably leapfrogged Michkov for the Calder trophy favorites. Again, we're only 40 games through. We're halfway through. A lot can happen in the next 41. But, Zach, 2 points in his last 12 games. He's not doing anything productive on 5-on-5. He's not even doing anything on the power play lately. Are you worried about Michkov at all?
No, not really. I'll probably say I would actually probably bench him again for another game or two, and then he'll probably just come back and then start rolling in some points after that.
Okay.
Again, like you did the first time. If I was
Mm-hmm.
Tortorella, I probably would sit him a few games and have him sit up in the press box or whatever and watch the game from above and see what he can do differently. And
All right.
also, by the way, Michkov was not on the first power play unit on the first 2 power play opportunities last night
I
because
noticed that.
they'd rather have that fraud Joe Farabee out there on the first power play unit.
Don't worry, we're gonna get to that idiot soon.
Uh,
Last question
uh,
before mid-season grades. This comes from Dylan on X. What are the Flyers' plans for the trade deadline? Are they going to be buyers or sellers?
man.
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news to everybody. They're going to be sellers at the trade deadline. They are in no position right now to go and make a mega trade for a big time player. They're just not in the position financially. And I don't think they're in a position internally to make that giant leap for a guy at the deadline, because I feel like if they're going to trade pieces away, if they're going to, and again, we all know what happens at the trade deadline. Prices reach a peak level that are just not conducive to anything that's remotely fair or productive for the future. The Flyers are going to wait until the offseason to start wheeling and dealing. I do believe when we get to the trade deadline, thank God, I think will be the last time we see Joel Farabee wearing a Flyers uniform, because he's disgracing the number 86, which is my number. He's disgracing that number. He's a disgrace. He's a famous Tony Atlas in pro wrestling used to say to King Kong Bundy, "You're stealing money every time you go to the bank. You're stealing money, Bundy." That's how I feel about Joel Farabee. When he's playing or trying to play hockey for the Flyers, he's stealing money because he sucks. He is pure ass, and I hate talking like that, but the guy just literally takes up space and clogs up minutes. And I understand that Tortorella has no one else to put out there, but for the love of God, just stop with Joel Farabee. Briere, Jonesy, I'm begging you, get rid of him yesterday. Just do something. But yeah, the Flyers are not going to be buyers at the deadline. They're going to be using, I think, this deadline to try to rid themselves of some contracts. I think you're going to see maybe Ristolainen trying to get moved. Farabee definitely is going to get moved, and just other pieces as well. Maybe if Scott Lawton could get moved to a potential playoff team. I just don't know Scott Lawton's value right now. I think again it was a dumb move from the Flyers to not trade him in the offseason when his value was at his highest. Look, prior to the Red Wings game, Lawton only had 10 points in 29 games. He's a fourth line winger most nights. But I will say since December 12th, he does have 12 points in 12 games. 4 of those 12 points was a 4-goal game. I just don't see him getting any better than what he was in that last 12 in that 12 game stretch. I think he's Scott Lawton. He's a guy, great leader, blah blah blah. But it's again, if you can move him, send him to a team that can win, then you got to get it done. Because if you don't, you're just going to do it in the offseason. So I do believe the Flyers are going to be sellers at the deadline. And I think in this offseason, they're going to be big-time buyers, whether it's free agency, but it's most likely going to come via just really big hockey trades. And I do expect the Flyers to be big in that market in the offseason. Again, the Flyers have probably the most assets in the league right now to trade for big-time talent. Those 3 number 1 picks, and what is it, Zach? 2 number 2s?
3 number 2s.
3 2s, 3 1s. Yeah, the Flyers can pretty much go out there for a trade and get whoever they want.
It's Oilers and Colorado's first that we have. And I believe it's Anaheim, Columbus, and our own second-round picks.
Yeah, and look, I also think, and I asked a couple people around with knowledge of these situations today. I mean, if the deal is right, Lutsenko is somebody who could be traded in the offseason. Again, that's just if something. It all depends on what comes up. Danny Briere and Keith Jones have been very open that they will listen on anybody. I'm going to say not necessarily. They're not going to listen on anything with Konechny and Michkov. Other than that, the Flyers are 1,000% open for business with pretty much anybody. So that's where we are. I'm sorry to break that. So don't expect anything big at the deadline unless something great just falls in their lap. So, all right, let's get to midseason grades. And then obviously we're going to be back here probably Saturday night to recap the week, and then talk about what's coming up next week. All right, so I'm going to name a player, Zach, and then I want you to give me your grade on him. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm ready.
First player. I think this is pretty easy. I think we're going to agree to this. Travis Konechny.
A+.
I agree with you, man.
Standout season. This might be his best season as a Flyer yet.
It's going to be.
By far.
Yeah, he's my favorite hockey player. He's been that way for a while, so I might be biased, but I don't think it's true. I don't think I'm biased on this. I think it's a fact. He's in a league of his own, man, on this roster. The fact and just how great he is, he has 45 points, 20 goals on a team that sucks. On a team that we've already established doesn't have a number one center, doesn't have a number two center, just doesn't have any other talent outside of Matvei Michkov around him.
Doesn't have a number one goalie and does not have a number one defenseman.
Yeah. Yep. He's the only Flyer on a over point per game pace. He's an over point per game pace right now. Obviously, if he gets to 70, 75, 80 to 90 points, it'll be a career high. His previous career high was last season at 68 points. He's been absolutely amazing. He's got 11 games this year of multi-point nights across an 18-game span from November 5th to December 12th. Konechny scored 10 goals and 16 assists. He earned the right to represent Team Canada in that Four Nations face-off. I think he's going to be an all-star again. TK is just amazing. He's a very underrated superstar in Philadelphia. I love the way he plays hockey. He's like the perfect Philadelphia player. No pun intended to the mascot. He's gritty, but he's also just incredibly talented. He's a star. He's an NHL star and big fan, obviously, of TK. All right, next guy, Rasmus Ristolainen.
Oh, wow. I'll probably B+, I'll say.
I was hovering around the B to B+.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm going to give him credit. I mean, the guy's everywhere. He was all over the ice last night. He never stopped skating. And I love that he also not only has he really upped his defensive mindset this season, he's also paying attention to, and we saw it last night, regardless if we like it or not, he's taking the initiative to try to be more offensive because I think he realizes that he kind of has to be. I don't like that he has to be a guy that you look into offensively, but it is what it is with this roster. As much as I think he's a B to B+ this year, he still has to be a candidate to be traded in 2 months. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm right around that B to B+ mark as well.
He can bet you a first round pick, I believe. If good playoff team.
If he stays playing the way he has been, I agree with you. All right. So next guy here, I think I glowing remarks. And Zach, I told you this guy was really good 2 years ago. He had a really rough last season, and I kind of soiled on him. But this season, man, he's going to get Selk votes. He's going to get Selkie votes. You're a grade for Noah Cates.
NC, yeah. I got to go him an A.
And
we were talking last year when he had a really bad season last year, saying, me and you were saying, man, we were wrong about Noah Cates.
I was so disappointed last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And then this season was like, wow, he's a good player.
Really good player.
It's hard to say because it's an A, by the way. I don't know if I said that. I forget.
You said A+. You've already changed it.
Yeah. Did I? He becomes a restricted free agent at the end of the season. And I guess he's 25 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's gonna want a bridge deal, but
He'll be 26 in February.
yeah, I don't think he's gonna want like a 2 year deal or 2 or 3 year deal. I think he'll probably want in between like the 4 to 5 year deal range.
Mm-hmm.
At like probably if the way he's playing this season, I'll probably give him like 4 million a year.
I think you and I were talking about this last night. If they went to him, I mean, Zach, if they went to him and said, "How's 3 years at 4 million a year?" He can't turn that down. He doesn't have any leverage.
Yeah, yeah. Or he could say, "Hey, I'm playing better than Joe Farabee. I should be making 5 million plus."
Farabee's making almost like 5.5, so that makes sense.
If Farabee has 4 years left or 3 years left on his contract at 5 million AAV.
Yeah,
Noah
good. Well,
Case will look at Briere and says, "Wait a minute. Look up Farabee's stats compared to mine. I'm a plus player. He's a minus. Also, I'm a Selk Trophy candidate. Give me like 5.5 million."
so I'm gonna and one, you're that's a good argument from the Kate side. I didn't think of it from that end. If you're arguing any side against Farabee, you should win. So here, let's just kind of talk about Noah Cates for a second, and I want to just continue just blowing smoke up his rear end because he deserves it.
I
He
love the
had
way he
one point.
skates too.
Yeah, he
Wow,
had
like a
one.
penguin.
He 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 uh he had 1 point in his first 12 games and now has 12 points in his last 13 games, including a 5 game point streak. Um, his confidence is at an all-time high. He's a +8, which leads the Flyers, which says a lot, Zach, because a lot of his ice time too comes on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
He's just been so good. So to be a +8 on this team, yeah, Zach. I mean, if it wasn't for Travis Konechny, I'm gonna be honest. I think Noah Cates would be my star player on this roster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Next player, Travis Sanheim.
He's having another good year too.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll give him like another B plus. I'll give him a B plus. He's having
mean,
the same year, sort of like last year. He was slowing down for a little bit this year, like the last like few weeks. He is slowing down.
so I think a reason for that is that he's averaging just about 25 minutes of ice time a night.
Yeah.
Which is 10th in the entire league. So the dude's on the ice a lot.
In the beginning of the season, he was averaging like 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, so this is easily his best season as a Flyer. He really took the offseason trade rumors, I think, to heart. Especially when I talked to him, it really seemed like he was super motivated for this season. So kudos to Sanheim. I'm going to give him a B plus right now. I'm really happy with him. He's not an eyesore like Zamula has been, but I really do like Sanheim's game this year. Next guy is Bobby Brink.
I'll probably give him a C plus.
Wow.
Yeah. I really don't. He's like up and down like every game.
He is.
He's not consistent. He's up and down, making horrible turnovers or
he does, yeah.
Making bad plays. But I will say though that him playing with Noah Cates and Forrester that's been our best line for probably about a month now.
Yeah, very much so.
And he is part of that with that line doing well.
And you can tell once he got moved to that line, his game is completely elevated. He's got 6 assists since then. He's maintained that +5 since December 18th. So, we're going on almost a month. He's a plus player. There has not been the longest stretch of games that Bobby Brink this season has gone without a point is 3 games. Matvei Michkov, more than doubles that. multiple times this season. So I will say I think that C plus is fair because we're judging this on a full 40 game half season right now. I would say over the last month, he's probably a B plus player since going to that line with Forrester and Cates. But I agree with you. I think C plus is very fair if we're judging the totality of the going to the midseason. So I'm with you right there. I'm expecting him to pick up his game in the second half. Let's go to the other guy on that line, Tyson Forrester.
Love that guy, man.
I like his shot. I wish he would do it more.
Yo, he has a great shot. He probably has second best shot on the team. Maybe even first, to be honest with you. I mean, I know Connecting has 20
dude.
TK,
goals, when TK wants to give you a pretty goal, you can do it anytime.
That's I'm giving Forrester a B plus. He had a very slow start to the season.
He had 3 points in his first 16 games. I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. And then when Tortorella had him with Noah Cates and Brink, put him on that line, he stepped it up. Now I think he's on pace to break his the goals that he had last year. I believe it was 20 goals last year. So
he's already got 12.
Pace. So he's on pace for almost
24, 25 goals.
Yeah. Which you probably won't maybe get. I'll say he gets like 22 goals, but
yeah.
Yeah, I'm basing it off of what he did in the beginning, the first few months. But yeah, I'll give him a B plus.
All right, a couple more names here. Matvey Michkov.
I'll give him a B plus.
All right, I'm right around that B plus.
Just if he didn't have like all those overtime goals that he had and led the league in overtime goals among rookies, if he didn't have that, I would probably give him a C plus.
Yeah.
But I think a B plus is fair for what he has on his line, and he's still putting up like 12 goals and like 18 or 13 goals and like 18 assists or something like that.
Matvey, 12 goals, 17 assists.
Okay, yeah, that was just off the top of my head too.
So I think look, he's pacing right now for just about 60 points. Which is probably most people's expectations of him, are right around that 60-point mark. What I think would be disappointing is I think a lot of people, including myself, thought he would touch that 25 to 30 goal mark. I don't think he's going to get the 30. Zach, do you think he can turn it up in that second half and maybe get the 25 goals?
I think he could get 25 goals. But I just don't see it with the line he's on right now.
I agree.
I believe it's with Frost and Tippett.
Right.
But then Tortorella also switches with Tippett and Farabee sometimes. I don't see 25 goals this year, to be honest with you.
That's disappointing to me, but it is what it is. I can't, with who he's playing with. If he can get to 25 goals, I feel like that's, the dude is working miracles, right? All right, so let's get to that next guy. You mentioned his name. I know you've been waiting to talk about him because you love him. Owen Tippett.
Oh, God. Oh, man, he's another disappointment.
I'm giving him a C.
I'm giving him I agree with that. I'll give him a C, too.
28 goals last year, 11 through the midway point this season.
And of course, you give him that 8-year at $6.2 million. It starts this year, and then he only has 11 goals.
Yep.
I expected him to have at least 16 goals by now.
Also, he has zero power play goals.
Yeah, that's another disappointment too.
Yeah. Yep.
And that doesn't help when he misses the net all the time either.
Yeah. So, this is a guy that better. I mean, he's the streakiest player. I mean, God, he might be the streakiest player in the league, definitely on this team. This is a guy that
Yeah.
needs to have, I don't want to use the word a monster second half, but he's got to have a really, really, really good second half to salvage this season, or else that contract is going to look like a massive, massive failure in black eye against the Danny Briere regime. Um,
I
Next
will
guy,
give him another chance. I'll give him one more season to
he's
evaluate him.
going to come back. He's not
I hope
tradable.
so.
He's not tradable. That contract's not tradable. Nobody would take that deal. The Flyers would have to pay more than half of that. All right, last
Crazy.
couple guys here. Morgan Frost.
A D plus.
I'm at a D plus.
Oh, he's trash.
He 7 goals in 36 games. I just don't know. The Flyers don't have anybody else, or else this guy wouldn't be seeing the ice. He's not good. He's just not a good NHL hockey player, and he's just
Right.
it's a shame. He's just so bad that Tortorella thinks it's great to put Matvei Michkov with him because that helps Michkov somehow. Just brain dead coaching sometimes. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a D to D plus for him. All right,
another guy is going to be on the move. I think at the deadline too.
Yeah, he could be. We'll see. That's definitely someone they've been trying to trade for a year. Last couple here, Cam York.
Oh man, I mean, it's kind of hard because he was hurt. What, he missed a month?
Yes.
How many
Before
games?
that, he was averaging 23 minutes of ice time.
Right. I'll give him. I'm giving him a C plus.
So I'm going to be right around that C plus to B minus because he's looked much better lately playing with Sanheim. He's got 5 assists in his last 8 games. He's on that second penalty kill unit, which is he does a good job there. He's a really good skater. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass. I want to see what he does this next half. Playing with Sanheim, I feel like has really helped him. So, but I'm still going to sit in that C plus to B minus range.
Yeah, he's been a real disappointment since last year. He was good last year. He was really good last year. He was a minus player, but I don't really care about that, to be honest with you.
We've already talked about Sean Couturier on this show. I don't think Garnett Hathaway is a guy that really needs to be talked about.
I love him.
I
give him an A.
No, I give him a C plus. I mean, he's Garnett Hathaway. He's got 12 points, which is unbelievable. But he already has 140 hits this season, which is wild. But I like Hathaway a lot. I'm not going to disparage him. He is what he is. If this was a really good hockey team, he might not even be on the roster, or he's just strictly a fourth line guy.
He'll be on the fourth line.
We talked earlier about Igor Zamula, how he's taken a huge step backwards.
It's another guy that could be on the move. The deadline.
I'm going to give Igor. This might be really harsh. I'm going to give Igor Zamula an F. And
I agree with that.
A lot of that is because of how good he looked all of last season. I mean, there were so many times you and I talked last season and we're like, man, Zamula looked really good. I mean, he skated up and down the ice really well. When the puck was on his stick, he seemed to do good things. He was somebody I trusted to take those shots from the point, to handle the puck. This season, man, I just feel like it's the complete opposite again. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe since November, he's been paired with Risto and he's looked a little better. Because all of October he was a -10 player. I don't know. I'm going to give him an F because I expected more. That's all. We talked about Couturier already. Just extremely disappointed in his game. I'm going to give him a D plus. I think Couturier is just a good guy, good captain, but he's completely cooked as an offensive player. Ryan Poehling is, I'm going to give a D. I mean, he does nothing either. Nothing. He's fourth among forwards, in block shots, but he does nothing else. That's it, nothing else. But whatever. He's kind of irrelevant. All right, I'm gonna lump these. Oh, last one before we get to goaltending because I know you want to talk about him too. Your grade for Jamie Drysdale. I'm giving him an F.
I'm giving him a D plus.
Man,
D plus.
I mean, I guess
I don't want to be.
He's a minus 14, Zach.
Well, D plus I think is fair.
Okay. He's on the number one power play unit. He has just 3 assists to show for it. The Flyers power play is 29th in the NHL, and he's the number one defenseman on that number one power play line. I think Cutter Gauthier sucks, but I think Jamie Drysdale sucks too. So the trade's a wash right now, in my opinion.
We got a second round pick out of
that. That's the only positive. The second round pick, who's not even a player yet, is already better than both of them. Last guy before we get to the goalies, because I just want to say how bad this guy is at hockey, Joel Farabee. I'm not even giving him a grade. He's out of my class. He sucks.
I'm giving him an E minus.
He has 6 goals and has gone on to have 2 7-game scoreless droughts. He at one point this season he had a 12-game goalless drought. You've got to get him out of here, Danny. I plead with you. Joel Farabee is one of the worst players I have ever seen on the Philadelphia Flyers. Just so bad. He's just so bad. I hate when he's on the ice. I hate it, and I hate it. All right. Last guys here. I'm going to lump them all together. Sam Ersson, Ivan Fedotov, and Mr. Kolosov. What do you give the goaltending grade?
Now, that's all together?
All together, because not one of them really plays the majority of games. It's all up. It's all every other day.
I'm giving them a. I'm gonna have to go with an F.
I think they're in the same boat as Joel Farabee. They're not getting a grade. They're out of my class. Just get them as far away from me as possible. Maybe Sam Ersson, maybe a healthy Sam Ersson can do something in the second half. I'm not sure, but I'm just saying this right now, and I don't have any insight to this. I mean, I'll keep poking around during the offseason. The Flyers for the next 2-3 years need to get a goalie in the building that can play 50 games, 50, 55, 60 games. You got to get that guy in here. It's embarrassing. The Flyers are an embarrassment to the world of hockey with how they are with goaltending. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yep. Remember this name in 2000.
In 2037.
June 2025. Jack Ivan Kovic. Remember his name. He played in the World Juniors this year.
Okay. All right.
Just remember that name, guys.
Which means he's like 13, which means he won't be here until 2032.
He's after he gets drafted, he's 2 years away.
Okay. That's good. Good. All right. So
ready to be cup contenders.
Oh, you are something else. All right, Zach. The Flyers tomorrow at home against the Dallas Stars. Then they are at home, a much anticipated game against the Anaheim Ducks on Saturday. And then they head next week to a pretty tough schedule. The Panthers, the Blue Jackets, the Islanders, and the Devils.
Oh my God.
But over the next two games here, because we'll be covered. Obviously, the next time we're on here will be after the Anaheim game on Saturday. What's your expectations over the next two games here?
I'll say they win tomorrow night against the Stars. It'll probably be a low scoring game. I'd
Okay.
probably say maybe 3-1 with the empty netter.
Okay.
I just think if they can do what they did against the Maple Leafs and they stay with the Maple Leafs for the whole game.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for those penalties taken, it would have been a different game in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think we probably would have won that game against the Maple Leafs if it wasn't for those penalties.
Okay.
And
yeah, I thought the Maple Leafs played better on Saturday, right? Saturday they played, but I think the Flyers played better Tuesday night. So so it just swapped. But
and I if Jake Ottinger starts tomorrow, he doesn't. He's okay in away games, but he plays best when he's home. But I still think we have that one.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting take.
But then the Ducks game, on the other hand,
the Ducks are coming in though playing very well. They are 5-4-1 in the last 10 games, so they're not playing bad.
I hope Garnet Hathaway takes a run at freaking Cutter Gauthier. Seriously, there needs to be like a Matt Domi type from Garnet Hathaway.
So I'm gonna, be true. I'm gonna tell people you are absolutely correct about Jake Ottinger on the road. He's a significantly different goalie away from Dallas. He's played 11 games on the road this year. An .891 save percentage and a goals against at just under 3. When he's at home on home ice, he's 14-4, a .917 save percentage, and a 2.13 goals against. So he is a completely different goaltender away from home. So let's hope Ottinger's between the pipes tomorrow so he can shut the Flyers out 4-0. But yeah, I think the Flyers beat. I don't even know why I'm thinking this. I think the Flyers win their next two games. I think they're going to win their next two games, and then they're going to run into a problem next week. I think they're going to have an issue, obviously, with Florida, and then I think they're going to have a problem with New Jersey next Saturday. But if they can just get these two wins at the end of this week, boy, that's a really good momentum shifter going into a 4-game week next week. So having 4 games in a week is a lot, but if they can get out of this homestand here, beating, back-to-back wins with the Stars and the Ducks, I'm pretty happy about that. Overall, before we get out of here, a prediction for the second half of the season, Zach. Do the Flyers pick it up, and do they make a solid run at the wild card to make the postseason?
I'll say in the last 10 games, how there are 3-6-1. I think that's going to continue down that road.
Oh, so you don't see any kind of like a point where they maybe go on a nice little run like last year that could see them push for a playoff spot. You think they are going to finish worse than last season?
Yeah. Just because the goaltending isn't there and the defense isn't there, and then even if we score 3 goals, that's still not enough. We have to score 5 goals for it to be enough, and we don't have that type of offense that can do that.
Right. I agree. We just don't. So I mean, we'll see what happens.
I
I'm
actually
looking
kind of
forward.
hope we're a bottom 5 team by the end of the season, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I know. All right, so that wraps up this show. Thank you guys so much. We will be way more consistent now that the time is on our side here. We'll be back here Saturday night after the Ducks game. Hopefully, that's on the back of a two games in a row, 2 wins. I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Flyers win their next 2 games before playing against Florida next Monday. But yeah, thank you guys for sticking with us and with the questions. We'll try to answer questions every time we do an episode here. So keep sending them in. I'll hide this here so you can see my Twitter handle at ChristyFran1. So definitely send those questions in. You can find me, my full name there on Instagram. Thank you guys so very much. If you're watching this on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, ring that bell for notifications when we are going live again. Zach, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Zach is going to be on as many shows as possible. He's new to this, but he's with me. So hopefully he just gets better and better and, talks more so I don't have to do it all the time.
Yeah, I was talking plenty, all right?
If that's plenty, I'm terrified when you have a rough night. So we'll see what happens this week, the rest of this week. We'll catch you guys here on Saturday. We hope you all have a great rest of your week and hope we'll catch you guys down the road. Have a good one, everybody, and let's go Flyers.